Imagine you are a sailor in the North Atlantic 1,000 years ago. No engine, no radar, no radio. Just a wooden hull, a sail, and miles of open ocean in every direction. The sea beneath you is black and cold and impossibly deep, and you have no idea what lives down there. Then one morning the water around your ship begins to churn. The surface rises. What you thought was an island, the island you were about to anchor beside, begins to move, and you realize, too late, that you have not been sailing toward land. You have been sailing toward something alive, something ancient, something so enormous it makes your ship look like a splinter of wood. This is the Kraken. And the remarkable thing is that for centuries, sailors did not think they were telling stories. They thought they were giving warnings. Welcome back to Mythos Uncovered, and today we are doing something a little different. The Kraken is not a god, not a hero, not a figure from a single mythology with a fixed set of stories. It is a creature, one of the most enduring sea monsters in the entire history of human legend. And its story stretches from the fjords of Norway across centuries of seafaring tradition and deep into some genuinely fascinating questions about where myth ends and natural history begins. Let's get into it. The word Kraken comes from the Norwegian and is related to an Old Norse word meaning something twisted or crooked, an unhealthy, misshapen thing. It appears in Scandinavian seafaring tradition going back at least to the 12th century, though the creature itself is almost certainly older than any written record of it. The earliest detailed written description comes from the Historia Naturalis of Norway, written by a Norwegian bishop named Erik Pontoppidan in 1752, who collected and recorded the accounts of Norwegian fishermen with the seriousness of a naturalist documenting a real species. Pontoppidan believed the Kraken was real. He described it as the largest creature in the ocean, perhaps the largest creature that had ever existed, and he recorded fishermen's accounts of its behavior with careful detail. According to those accounts, the Kraken was so vast that when it rose near the surface it was mistaken for a chain of islands. Sailors who unknowingly anchored near it would find the fishing extraordinarily good, because the creature's presence drew fish up from the deep in enormous numbers. The danger came when it descended again. The suction created by its sinking body would drag everything on the surface down with it, ships included. Pontoppidan noted that experienced Norwegian fishermen knew the signs. When the fishing became too good, when the water grew strangely warm and cloudy, when the ground beneath seemed to be rising, and they would row for their lives before the creature went back down. The Kraken in this tradition was not malicious. It was not hunting ships. It was simply so incomprehensibly large that the ordinary movements of its body were catastrophic to anything nearby. There is something almost more terrifying about that than a monster that is actively trying to kill you. The Kraken did not notice you. You were too small to notice. You were simply in the way. The creature appears in earlier Norse sources too, woven into the fabric of the same mythological world we have been exploring in recent episodes. The Midgard serpent Jormungandr, the vast serpent that encircles the world, is the Kraken's great mythological cousin, another expression of the Norse belief that the ocean was fundamentally unknowable and that things of incomprehensible size and power lurked in its depths. The sea in Norse cosmology was not a highway or a resource. It was a border, a dangerous living border between the ordered world and the chaos beyond it. In older Scandinavian tradition, there is also a creature called the Hafufa, mentioned in medieval Norse texts, including the Konungs Skuggsjö, the king's mirror, written in the 13th century. The Hafufa was described as the largest creature in the sea, capable of swallowing ships whole, and it used a cunning method of hunting. It would open its vast mouth and breathe out a scent that attracted fish, drawing them in by the thousands, and then close its jaws. Some scholars believe the Hafufa and the Kraken are the same creature viewed through different centuries of tradition. Others see them as separate but related expressions of the same deep human anxiety about what the ocean contains. Hey, quick pause right here. If you're enjoying this, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps this channel grow and means more myths, more stories, more uncovering. All right, back to the Kraken. What makes the Kraken genuinely unique among sea monsters is the question of whether it was entirely imaginary. Because the ocean does contain a real creature that matches the broad outlines of what sailors were describing. The giant squid, Architeuthis ducks. Giant squid can reach lengths of up to 13 meters, with eyes the size of dinner plates, 8 arms, and 2 longer tentacles covered in suckers ringed with sharp serrated edges. They live in the deep ocean and are almost never seen alive at the surface. For centuries, the only evidence of their existence was the enormous sucker scars found on the skin of sperm whales and the occasional battered corpse washed ashore after a storm. To a sailor in a small wooden boat who happened to encounter a giant squid at the surface, something that would have been extraordinarily rare but not impossible, the creature would have been unlike anything in their experience. Long writhing arms, an enormous mantle, movements that seemed alien and purposeful. Scaled up through the natural human tendency to embellish a survival story, and passed through generations of retelling, a 13-meter squid could very plausibly become the island-sized monster of the Kraken legends. The myth may not have been pure invention. It may have been a genuine attempt to describe something real that the people who saw it had no framework to explain. This is one of the things that makes the Kraken so interesting as a piece of mythology. Most sea monsters are clearly symbolic, expressions of fear, chaos, the unknown. The Kraken sits in a stranger space, somewhere between genuine natural observation and the human imagination's tendency to take something terrifying and make it even more so. The sailors who told these stories were not fools. They were experienced people who knew the sea better than almost anyone alive, and they were saying that something very large lived in the deep water. They were not entirely wrong. The Kraken became embedded in the broader tradition of sea monster lore that stretched across nearly every seafaring culture in the world. The ancient Greeks had Scylla and Charybdis. The Hebrews had the Leviathan, the vast sea creature described in the book of Job as something only God himself could subdue. The coastal peoples of the Pacific Northwest had the Sisuil. Every culture that sailed deep water developed its own version of the same essential idea, that the ocean is alive in ways we do not fully understand, and that its depths contain things that do not follow the rules of the surface world. The Leviathan is worth pausing on because it represents the oldest written tradition of a sea monster that carries the same scale and the same sense of overwhelming, unchallengeable power as the Kraken. In the book of Job, God describes the Leviathan to demonstrate the limits of human understanding. Here is a creature you cannot comprehend, cannot control, cannot even approach safely. The point is not that the Leviathan is evil. The point is that it exists entirely outside the human frame of reference. The Kraken carries the same quality. It is not a villain. It is simply a scale of existence that makes human life look very, very small. So, the Kraken, a creature born from the deep cold waters of the Norse world, fed by centuries of genuine seafaring experience and the very human need to give a name and a shape to the thing that waits in the dark beneath the waves. Part myth, part natural history, part philosophical statement about the limits of what we know and the vastness of what we do not. The sea keeps its secrets well. The myths always have more in them than we first think. That's why we're here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Mythos Uncovered. It genuinely means a lot that you spend your time here with me diving into these ancient stories. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and hit the bell so you never miss a new myth. And drop a comment below telling me what myth or legend you want me to cover next. Every single comment gets read, and the next video might just come from you. I'll see you in the next one.